much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about our guest, Trena Davis. The title of her book, Her Last Words to Pinky. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Trena. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait to talk to you about your book. But before we get started, it's tradition here that we give each guest an opportunity to introduce themselves for whoever out there may not be familiar with you or your book. So first question for you is, what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Trena Davis, and I'm married. I have 3 stepchildren and 14 grandchildren, and now I'm a published writer, published author.
And that is exciting. I love it. I love it. And I love that you have a big family. I'm a little nostalgic, if you will, for the times of large families where you just have a house full of love during the holidays, and it just makes for grand memories. So I love that. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity and you said yes?
Yes, I've always wanted to write. I just didn't know how to get started and what to write about, so I just thought about me and my mom, and I just started there.
Now, the title of your book, Her Last Words to Pinky, I like it. Cute title. What made you decide to use those words to describe the title of your book?
Well, because it was about me as a little girl growing up with my mom, so she always called me Pinky, because when I was a little baby, I always had my little pinky stuck out, so she gave me a nickname, and Pinky was it.
I like it. See, listeners, this is why I always ask that question. You never know the behind-the-scenes answer to that question. I love it. I love it. Now, as far as the ideal reader is concerned, did you write this for any particular group of people? For example, did you write it just for women readers? Did you write it for someone who wants to go on a journey, like escape from their life for a little while they're reading the book? Or did you make it kind of a general purpose all read for everyone? What's the ideal reader, or who is the ideal reader?
Well, it's mainly for women, and I feel that, a lot of stuff that I went through as a little girl growing up, so, I focus on women and family.
And I love a book that includes all kind of aspects of our lives. It makes it a little bit more relatable for people. They can see themselves in the situation, or at least someone else, if not themselves, they may know someone else who had a similar experience, and it really helps bring the book to life. So I can definitely understand that. Now, was there any particular prompting that really gave you the nudge to actually start writing? I know for a lot of authors, they will say, people kept saying, you should make that a book, you should share your stories, or something happened in their lives where they realized that time is precious and they wanted to share the story and leave a legacy for their family. Was there any particular thing that prompted you to start writing?
Well, yeah, I have a friend, an African friend that lives in Uganda. He had sent me over an article of a woman, and she was talking about her mother, and he was like, "You should write." So I took it from there, and I wrote my story because I've always wanted to write it anyway. So, like I said, I had to figure out how and when to start. So this was my first book. So I just, after I read her story, I loved it, and I took it from there.
It is so amazing how women can inspire other women, be it that we are aware of it or not. But I love the fact that that your friend was able to see the inspiration in that, but more importantly, that you were able to see the relevance as well, and to use it as a prompting to go on and write. I love it. Now, when you were in the process of putting the stories together and, actually creating the book, did you find that there was a particular environment that you needed? Did you find that there was a particular environment that you needed when you were writing? Did you need it to be quiet, or did you need to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle of the day? Did any of that matter for you?
Yes, I needed to be quiet. I needed it to be non-noisy. So I was in my own little space. So yeah, it did need to be quiet.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the next question that I'm asking totally depends on your availability to write and all of those things. But how long did it take you to, from start to finish? How long would you say it took you to write the book? I know some people have shared and said, Dr. Angela, I've been writing this book for 15 years just because I didn't have dedicated time. I've also spoken with some authors that said that they were able to write their book within 90 days or 6 months because they had the time thanks to, for example, the pandemic, and because they didn't have to leave to go to work or any of those things, they were able to really concentrate on writing. How long did it take for you to get the story written from start to finish?
Well, I started writing this book in 2017, and I got done in 2020. It took me 3 years to write this book.
Hmm. Well, you can't rush a good thing, so I think it takes exactly however long it is supposed to take to get that book written. I love it. Now, I usually ask this question just because I am the type of person who, upon graduation from high school, I usually give a age-appropriate gift, which usually is a gift card to someone who's 18, and then I give them a book just because I'm that person. With that being said, would you say that this book is appropriate for our high school readers to be able to read, or should they be maybe college age or a little bit older in order to follow the storyline?
Well, I figured all age could read it, and you know, it's a pretty good book, and it's very interesting. And it's me as a little kid, so I figured college students and older people, a little younger than that, can read this book.
Oh, good. Okay. And again, I usually ask that question because if it's appropriate for a high schooler, then, we have holidays coming up, we have birthdays coming up, and many times for graduation, I know that I usually give a book that is inspirational in some way, shape, or form. So that's awesome. That's awesome that you've included them. Now, of course, I have to give the disclaimer. You don't have to tell the end of the story or how the story ends because, listeners, what am I going to say? You got to buy the book to find out how it ends. But with that being said, Trena, can you tell us a little bit about the storyline of the book, or tell us about the main character and how you chose to, though it's about yourself, how did you choose to write about yourself as the main character in the book?
Well, I had to go back, so I chose to write, about me and my mom spending time together. And I had also to include my family because they was a part of the story too. So I figured that me writing a book about me as a little girl and dealing with my mom would have been a good start, So that's how I chose it to be.
I love it. I love it. Well, listeners, it is time for us to take a very short break. But before we do, Trena, can you please remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And, of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is Her Last Words to Pinky. And you can get a copy at Amazon and anywhere they sell books.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Trena Davis, and we are talking about her book, Her Last Words to Pinky. I know, such a cute title. Well, my next question for you, Trena, is about the end product. I know that it takes a lot of sacrifice and love and dedication to get a book written. It doesn't matter if it's a biography, if it's fiction, nonfiction, historical fiction, none of that matters. It takes dedication and drive to make sure that that book gets completed. With that being said, how did you feel when you held the first copy of your book in your hands?
Oh, well, I was really ecstatic. I was happy. And I was glad it was done and over with because a lot of the story I had to relive, and I did a lot of crying and a lot of laughing. It's some laughing and crying all together, and I was so happy it was done. So.
And so many authors say that, especially when you're writing about yourself or something that happened, to your family or to your friends, because it's real, and it does take you right back to that state of mind, to that place. And I think that for many readers, they forget that the author can be triggered both positively and negatively with the storyline themselves. So thank you so much for being able to share that part of the storyline with us. Now, when you were trying to decide on how you were going to get the book out to the masses, we nowadays have the option of self-publishing versus using a publishing house. How did you make the determination of which way you were going to go? Did you choose to go the self-publishing route, or did you use a publishing house?
I went to I did a self-publishing.
And was there any particular reason why you chose to self-publish? I know, for example, with some of my children's book authors, their reason is because they don't want the storyline to be changed, or they like the illustrations and they don't want that to be tweaked. They want to really have control over the book. Many people that are writing biographies feel that way as well. Like if they've experienced a trauma and they're trying to share, being a survivor, they don't want anyone to change their story. What prompted you to choose the self-publishing route?
Well, as you said, I want sole control over my book so that no one could change the story but me.
Mm-hmm. Now, if there is one overarching message that you want for the reader to take away from your book, what is that one message that you hope that a reader discovers along the way, having read a copy of Her Last Words to Pinky?
I would want them to just, if they had a story to tell, then tell your story. I mean, I told my story, so write a book, jot down a few words, and go from there. And you look up, it'll be done. I did it, so I know they can do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love how you give that bit of extra encouragement as well, that, we did it, which means that you can do it. And I love that. Never think that it's just something that's exclusive for one person or for one group of people, but that all people can do it if they choose to. I love that. I love that. Now, if switching gears just a little bit and asking those questions for our aspiring authors, asking for our aspiring authors out there, if is there any bit of advice that you wish you would have known when you were going through the process? Is there anything you wish that you would have known a little bit sooner, or is there any decision that you made that, looking back at it, perhaps you would have done it a little bit differently? Not saying, that you have regrets or anything, but many times we learn through the process of doing things. Is there any bit of advice there that you can share?
Yeah, I kind of wish I had wrote it sooner, because I could have wrote probably another part to it, but it was just so traumatic that I don't want to write another part to it. I'm not going to go there again because, like I said, I was having anxiety attacks when I wrote this book. So, no, it won't be a sequel. It won't be another part. So, I'm done with it.
Right, I can definitely understand that. It's like, okay, I've done my therapy with it, put it down, I'm done. I definitely understand it there. Now, when we look at what it means to be a success, especially here in the States, many times we um, look at someone successful and it means that they have, an expensive car, they have a really large house, they are able to spend money, what people would think would be recklessly or unbeknown to them. They can just swipe the card and be fine. Don't ask what the price is, or however people think of what it means to be successful and rich in this country. With that being said, many times being a successful author may or may not look the same way. Authors have a very different way of looking at what it means to be successful. In your words, in your mind's eye, what does it look like when you are a successful writer? Is it one book sold, 1,000 books sold, New York's bestseller list, or just personal gratification, personal satisfaction because you were able to fulfill the dream of becoming a published author?
Well, I'm hoping the New York bestseller would. I can get that. Hopefully.
Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that when I ask that question, everyone has their own answer, and it's not kind of a one size fits all. And I really like that because you never know what someone's dream is, what their hope is, and what their plan is for getting there. So I can definitely understand that. And hey, being on the New York bestsellers list is nothing to sneeze at. So I love it. I love it. Now, last question for you here, and that is dealing with just words of encouragement. I know that there are some aspiring female authors out there that may be looking to you for some advice simply because you are a fellow female author. With that being said, do you have any advice for our aspiring female authors out there?
Yes. If they got a story to tell, then they should tell their story. And I feel that if they can talk and hold a conversation, then they can write.
I see what you're saying there. Just get it down and get it out there because someone needs to hear your story. I love it. I love it. Well, Trena Davis, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me here today on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. Before I let you go, can you remind us one last time, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is Her Last Words to Pinky, and they can get a copy off of Amazon and where books are sold.
Thank you again for being a guest on the show today. And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it with me today, and I appreciate that. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about our author. His name is H.W. Shakes, and we're talking about the book Magnetism, the Revelation. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on and get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela today.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Angela.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we definitely want to talk to you about your book, but we have a little bit of a tradition here, and that is we give every author an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few people that are unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question for you is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you, you?
What makes me, well, I'm just compelled to write. I enjoy writing very much. I enjoy writing about Christian characters and how they might respond in a given situation. And that's just something I just have to do, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, absolutely. I find that we are all called to a particular purpose, and when we walk in that purpose, when we do what we have been called to do, destined to do, however people want to say that, you really feel completed, or as though your day has meaning and value because you're doing exactly what you feel that you are supposed to do. I love that. I love that. Now, when it comes to being an author, is that something that you have always wanted to do, or did you find that life presented the opportunity and you were able to say yes?
It was something I always wanted to do. It was something I kind of had to learn how to get into, if you know what I mean. It was not just a simple thing as applying for a job and getting that. You have to learn how to write in the format and that kind of thing, and be able to get the right people together to promote your book and to edit your book and just make it a really good book.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you share a very fun fact about your work life. You work in a very special courthouse. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I've spent most of my life in Greensburg, Indiana, which is famous for having a tree on top of the courthouse. The only place I know where a tree goes out of the roof of a courthouse, and that's the building in which I do work.
I love that. I love that. You know, I cannot say that I ever have a boring time with any of the authors that I get to spend time with on the show, because everyone comes from such a varied background, and there's always something fun or something new to learn about a person, and I love that, because I'm sure my listeners get tired of me talking about my grandmother or my beloved son, or all of those things, and they want to definitely know more about the people we're talking about. So thank you for sharing that little fun fact. Now, the title of your book, Magnetism, The Revelation. I like it. Why was that the appropriate title for your work?
Well, it's about a young man who was growing up on a farm in the middle of the Second Great Depression, when equipment started breaking down and they really couldn't afford to fix it, but he was kind of mechanically inclined. And then God gave him a revelation on how to build an engine purely out of magnetics and opposite polarities of magnetics, almost a perpetual motion machine. And he went from being a poor farmer to being a wealthy industrialist in a fairly short time.
I like that. Now, what genre would you say is the best fit for your book, for someone who may be looking for a book in a particular genre?
One is science fiction. That's the main genre. There's also Christian science fiction, because I try to write my main characters as devout Christians.
Absolutely. I can definitely understand that. Now, when it comes to the age group for the reader, I like to ask it this way. Is the book appropriate for someone as young as a high schooler? Would that be okay? Or would you say college age or older? What's the perfect age range there?
I would say high school up. I believe they'd be old enough for that, yeah.
I'm one of those people that like to give books as gifts, especially for graduation. And if I know that someone likes a particular genre, then I'm definitely going to find a book for them, or something that's going to challenge them or encourage them, or something funny if they're leaving home, to be able to take a little bit of something with them to definitely keep them in high spirits. So I love it. Now, were you ever at any particular age where you realized that words have power, that be it that they were your words or there was another author, but you came upon the realization, oh my goodness, you can really go on a journey with someone, or someone can really command attention simply by the written word?
I guess when I started getting into fiction books and reading them, and especially science fiction, I found out that this could really guide you in a lot of ways. If the character wasn't real, they still had good points, and maybe some other characters had bad points that you didn't want to get into, and There's also the possibility, like I believe this engine I'm talking about, if somebody had the mechanical knowledge, which I'm not great at that, could probably build it. So it's a possibility thing. And if you think back on the original Star Trek series, for example, the flip open communicators, we had flip open phones eventually. So things can come from this in the future.
Absolutely. You know, I have mentioned on several occasions that we don't think about how much in the future that we're actually living until someone sits down and says something exactly like you said, you know, the flip phones or the microwave from the Jetson cartoon, you know, just those little things that have become everyday for us, but really past generations did not experience and had no idea that that would be coming. So you are so right there. Now, I want to ask you about the main character of the book. Now, my listeners know I always give a disclaimer that says if you want to know how the story ends, you have to buy the book. But can you tell us a little bit about the main character and why was it important to give them that type of personality?
Well, I think God often takes people that you wouldn't imagine filling a given role and puts them into that role, like a little shepherd boy named David who became a king. And in this case, this was like a poor farmer, wasn't really sure they're even going to be able to hang on to their farm in the midst of a depression. And he gave him a revelation so he could build this engine. And within just a matter of a few years, they were not only wealthy industrialists, they were pulling the country out of this depression and reaching out to space eventually. So we don't know, when God decides to take us on a ride, we don't know where it's going necessarily. And my main character, Will Severn, really did not know where it was going and just had the faith to follow through where God led him.
You know, I love how it sounds like you have included bits and pieces, perhaps, of American history kind of in there to give you a foundation of a time, to give you a sense of time and place, but you've also allowed the reader to kind of go on the journey with you as well. I love that. I love that. Now, when it comes to the actual science fiction world, many times when I ask the question of what got you started with science fiction as opposed to historical fiction or even nonfiction for that fact, usually there's something that happened. Someone gave me a comic book, someone took me to a movie, something on television. Do you remember the moment that you really started to realize, hey, sci-fi might be for me?
I do. One of my best friends growing up was my cousin Ron, who unfortunately passed on from muscular dystrophy. And Ron did not have the ability to develop his body because of his disease, but he developed his mind. And one thing he loved was science fiction, and in that case, the original Star Trek. And that's where my interest in science fiction started. And it just seems to be the genre I write best in. And I just have, ever since he turned me on to Star Trek, I've been real interested in sci-fi.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember one author said, I like sci-fi because the rule is there's kind of no rules. And he explained it. He says, you know, I can start with an idea and I can develop it as far and wide as I want. And I was like, you know, that's kind of true. You can be quite creative when it comes to science fiction, and I love it. You have, of course, that foundation of the science, but you can stretch it as far as you like. I love it. I love it. Well, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, it's Magnetism, the Revelation. It's available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. And My Facebook page is Wayne Shake, so you can get in contact with me through Facebook.
Everyone, now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am Dr. Angela Chester, but my guest today is H.W. Shake, and we are talking about the book Magnetism, The Revelation. I know, that is an awesome title. Well, Wayne, my next question for you is, when it comes to the character, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and just in case someone is coming into the show a little bit late, I wanted to ask you about the personality of the main character. Are there any particular moments that you may have written a certain way to make sure that the reader really gets the message or the point that you are trying to get across? Why was it important to write him that way?
Well, I started him out as a farm boy and a poor farm boy. And if you look back in history, there's a number of our great leaders that came up from poverty. Lincoln would be one of them. And they follow the path God leads them on and get to a place they probably never expected to get to. And this man ends up in a lot of places, if you read the book, that you wouldn't think a simple farm boy would ever get to. And he intended, as it says in the book, that to live his entire life on the farm and grow up and be a farmer and inherit the place from his parents. And that wasn't where God led him. And so he had to adjust and do the things God led him to do and become a quite famous and rich and powerful man.
You know, I love to hear the stories of that particular time period. It is, to me, it's quite encouraging and inspiring, be it that it is someone who may be a local celebrity or someone who has become millionaire or billionaire status, just their tenacity to keep going, the fortitude that it took to really overcome some of the things that they had to deal with during that time period to get to where they wanted to be. You are so right. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, the Great Depression, that had to be so difficult. Or we hear about the dust storms and whatnot that would happen in the Midwest, and it's like those poor farmers lost their crops. You know, it seems so tough, but I think that everyone has their own version of having to really overcome adversity, whatever it is, to keep moving forward. So thank you for that reminder there. Now, when it comes to actually putting your book together, did you find that you needed a particular environment in order to really write and get your thoughts out of your head and onto paper?
Well, where I did probably the most writing in my life was when I was working third shift. And then I'd have a night off, and of course I used to go to bed at 7 in the morning while it was after 3 on my nights off before I could get to bed. So I'm sitting here in the house with the rest of the family sound asleep and set up my computer and wrote. And it was a very good thing to do and get my ideas out and develop them. And it took a few years to get to the point of Will Severn coming out of the Second Great Depression and building the Magnetic Engine Company, but over the years that idea is fleshed out, and finally I put it into a book.
And you remind me of my son when you said that. He's also in the same field, and he says, you know, I love that it's the world is kind of quiet. You know, you come in and everyone is either gone for the day, or it's just different, and you're able to get so much done, where if everyone else is on the same kind of that 9 to 5 hustle and bustle, he's like, nope, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. He's a night person. So I can definitely understand how that was very productive time for you. I love it. I love it. Now, as far as the moment of truth, I'll call it. So you've written the book, it has been edited, you've sent it off to be published, and you now hold your book in your hands. How did you feel in that moment of holding your first copy?
Oh, that is a thrill when you get your first copy of your book. Actually see it in print. I mean, you have the manuscript on a computer, but it's not got the cover and those kind of things. And it's just, I read a bunch of books over the years and seen all these. I'm holding something in my hand that I actually wrote, and that's an incredible feeling.
It sure is, and I love asking that question because for so many people, we kind of gloss over that moment, or it's something that's only kind of shared with whomever's with you in that moment, right? Be it that it's your wife or your dog, it's your kids or your mom. It's like just that person gets to share it with you, but it's really inspiring from some of the aspiring authors who email us and ask me to definitely ask continue to ask those questions, because everyone, I think, can't wait until that moment when they're able to hold that first copy and it's like, wow, I did it. So absolutely, I love it. Now, if there was a piece of advice that you could give to your younger self when it comes to writing your book, is there any piece of advice that you would say, do it sooner, or, try doing it this way instead of that way? Any piece of advice you would give yourself?
Oh, I think maybe to be more productive and get more things out and write more. It's nice to get it out, and also to learn the business sooner and better, so you can get more and more things out. And the ideas are in your head, but putting them on paper is another thing. And it takes some time to do that and develop the covers and so forth and so on. So first of all, maybe learn the business a little bit, then start getting some stuff out and get your ideas out there. And it's great reward to see somebody reading your book, and that's something that's really special, that they enjoy it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think that people really understand what that's like when you see someone doing that. I tell people all the time, especially if you have a hardback copy, or even if it's a soft cover, but if you have a tangible book, take a picture of that and post the review and say, I loved this book. Or just put it on your social media and tag that author and say, I loved this book. It's really, really, I think it is very encouraging when we know that someone can extract some bit of encouragement or inspiration, or simply the journey of having some time off. Our world keeps us so busy that sometimes we just need to have the escape of being able to go on the journey that the author has presented for us that day. So even if that's all you're able to do, make sure that you tag that author on that post and let them know that they made a positive mark on your life. Now, as far as the business part of it is concerned, authors have to choose if they want to self-publish or if they want to use a publishing house. Now, how did you make your determination as to whether or not you would go the self-publishing route or using a publishing house?
I've actually done both, and this particular book is with a publishing house. I've self-published some things too, and of course, a publishing house has a lot more resources than you do, on how to get things out to the public. But there again, self-publishing you can do almost without cost. So it depends on your financial situation and how much you're willing to spend on getting your book out. You can go either way, and through Amazon, for example, it's not a hard thing to do at all, and it doesn't cost a thing to download it. So.
And thank you for that, because I think for so many people they are hesitant because it's a budget issue for them. They really want to do whatever is best, and they're just not quite sure which way to go. So thank you for that suggestion. I did not realize that. So that is awesome. Now, when it comes to being able to stay in contact or getting out there and spending time with your readers, pre-COVID, I jokingly call it BC, before COVID, we were able to do book expos, and we could get out there and do those meet and greets and all those things, and we could really receive direct feedback. But now during the pandemic, of course, it's not in our best interest necessarily to move about the way that we used to. With that being said, have you been able to still kind of keep a pulse on your readers in any way? I know that with many musicians, they were able to do Zoom concerts, and even though it wasn't the same, you still felt like you were doing something to stay in the loop. As an author, has it been difficult, or do you think it's been just a path that you had to figure out your way, but it was still, you were still able to stay in contact with them?
Well, during COVID, no, I really haven't done a lot, for the simple fact that most of the places I used to promote stuff have been called off. And for example, our fall festival here, I used to always get a booth and promote my books there. But I didn't this year. We just actually did have the fall festival again, but I haven't, and that's something I'll have to start looking at again and getting back into, because again, so much got canceled because of the pandemic. It just wasn't available. So if people want to contact me on Facebook, as we said earlier, obviously I can interact with them there, but right now, there's not a lot I can do. I mean, it's starting to come back, but there's not a lot you can do right now.
Exactly. And, I remember when this all first started, we were thinking, it's only going to be for a short while. And here we are, a year and a half, almost 2 years later, and we're still trying to, figure out what do we do and what shouldn't we do. So I can definitely understand. I know for Daily Spark TV, we've decided not to do in-studio filming, simply because we do have people traveling from all parts of not only the States, but international folks as well. So it is kind of a hard call right now of what to do, but I'm glad for social media. Like you said, people can still interact with you on Facebook, and that's a really good step in the right direction. Now, as far as the future is concerned, of course, I think everyone the world over is praying that the pandemic will finally be over and we can get back to a new sense of normal. Are there any plans for you? Of course, I know you want to do the festivals and the expos and all of that, but by chance, are you writing anything new, or because of time lost, are you really trying to just kind of spend more time on this book?
Actually, I've got a sequel to this one in the works, and then there's another one that I've completed and need to edit, which would be about Will Severn's great-grandson and what he has done. So I'm going to kind of stay in the genre, but I also do write devotionals. I got a couple of those out, so I'm going to put out as much as I can, because I still have the compulsion to write.
Absolutely. And I like the idea of the great grandson because then, enough time has passed. It's a whole new world out there. So it's like, ooh, that'd be interesting. I like how you've pushed us forward in time with that one. That sounds really, really good. And a devotional. Aha, I like those. They're always good no matter when you find them. For some of us who remember picking up a daily bread every day and starting that devotional. It doesn't matter what day it is. When you pick it up, it's always something good to inspire you. So I love it. I love it. Well, Wayne, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and spending time with me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I have enjoyed my time with you. And before I let you go, I want to ask one last time if you could remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And if we want to stay in contact with you, what's your website? How do we do that?
Okay, it's Magnetism, the Revelation, and it is available at Amazon and where books are sold. And I'm on Facebook under Wayne Shake, so you can contact me there.
I love it. Thank you again for being a guest.
Thank you, Dr. Angel.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. You could have been anywhere, but of course you chose to spend it with us, and I thank you for doing that. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you again today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.